Everybody. Hi, everyone. So, admittedly, we have all been talking for a little about the troubles in the world, and now we are moving along to the main event, which is One Art's June reading. And with us today, we have Kathy Cohen, Robbie Nestor, Judy Cronenberg, and Barbara Crooker.
Feld.
So,
Judy Kronenfeld.
Cronenfeld,
That's
Judy,
the thing that's happened to me all my life.
I'm so sorry. I feel like
No
I
worries.
say it different every single time, but I'll get it right. This is why I should have been looking at the actual bios when I started talking. So what else did I want to say? Happy Pride. We actually went to a Pride event yesterday and it was lovely. I was especially pleased to see not only all the people in very good moods, but it felt safe and the turnout was really good. I thought it would be a smaller event than in previous years and that there would be some like signs of just tension, but really no, it was just even larger and people were really happy and clearly coming from like all areas, but it's just amazing to see just clearly people from like all walks of life and just a lot of like really young people, like a lot of teenagers and 20 somethings, but all ages and really cool. And also just like different faith groups being really positive and it's just really nice. I've often said that like the queer community is really the best example of community that I've just seen.
Mhm.
I love the literary community, but the way that I've seen queer community do events and just sort of I guess perform community and like perform togetherness is like just really impressive. Um, I digress though. So we have a wonderful lineup of celebrated featured poets today, and I do want to mention because I always forget to mention that people have books, and I hope you'll consider buying a book. Um, a little bit of housekeeping. So there's a bunch going on in the world of one art. So we have the monthly readings going on, as well as a few upcoming workshops. Donna's in the audience. In the fall, we're going to be doing another workshop with Donna Hilbert, with the kind of in the back to school spirit. Um, and there's a few others that are sort of on the horizon. But in the near term, we're going to have one with Carly Randolph Pittman, which is going to be on the subject of writing through illness. And then one with Harriet Levin, who you might know as Harriet Milan. But Harry's doing a workshop on 100-line poems. So I think we'll be talking about people like Larry Levis, and anyone examples of people who historically have impressively been able to write long and sort of carry voice tone style over a kind of duration, which I think many of us, even with much practice, still find very, very difficult to maintain. And that's actually going to be One Art's first multi-session workshop, which is cool. So that's actually going to run the entire month of August. So it's going to be Tuesdays in August for Harriet Levin's workshop. So back to the main event. Our featured poets, I'm going to get this right this time. Barbara Crooker, Robbie Nestor, Judy Cronenfeld, and Kathleen Cohen. So to begin, Kathleen Cohen was the 2019 Poet Laureate of Montgomery County in Pennsylvania. Kathleen is a poet, painter, and teacher. She created We the Poets program for children, which I can put a link in the chat for that. Her poems have appeared in a wide array of literary magazines, including her books, Camera Obscura, Etching the Ghosts, and Sparks and Disperses. And then I have some links for where you can find her artwork, including her website, and where she blogs for Mad Poets, which is a local society based in like the greater Philadelphia area in the western suburbs. And recently she had a poem nominated for Pushcart. So Kathleen, take it away.
Thanks so much. I'm grateful to you, Mark and Louisa, and everyone for the opportunity to be here today, and for everyone tuning in. So I am someone who paints as well as writes, and for a long time have been interested in ekphrasis, the connection between different art forms, for me particularly painting, watercolor, and writing. And so I'm very interested in how they influence each other. For me, sometimes there's a narrative exchange going on. Sometimes a poem springs from an image, but often there's something more mysterious going on personally. So I will, it's not a cop-out to be in front of you, but I'll be showing you images as I read my work. So see if this works. Hope it does. Yay. So, yeah. Okay. All right. So, hey, bargain. Let's come to terms. I bargain with the brush, the paints squirming on the palette like snakes. I'll mix water with aqua and oxide green, create pools, lakes, an ocean, even sky. Any atmosphere you need, just don't hold back from the page when it glows, whatever image dares to emerge. Tethered. An injured hawk visits art class. His handler warns us not to speak. She lifts a black cloth from the cage. Within, the hawk quakes as she unknots a rope, secures it to her wrist. We shiver as the hawk shivers, scans the room, and swivels his yellow eyes, shocked. He doesn't regard us straight on, but takes our measure, maps space between our bodies as if he might escape, as if his wing had knitted and healed. We are not trees in the open, not wind. Although our sticks of charcoal rish rush as we scribble on paper, trying to capture the flicker of one feather. To arrive in this moment. I've been painting a still life for weeks, not once, a series of 5 objects, a jar, a lemon slice, a glass and bird. I'll try to be clearer. A rose-tinted water jar half filled, a whole lemon, a sliced lemon wedge, a stemless wine glass, red, a plaster bird the size of my outstretched hand, which grasps a brush so balanced and fine bristled, it extends my fingers, arms, ribs, the pivot of my spine, so as to create the illusion of flight. This encourages the bird, who's been warming the nest of my palm, but now flits to a turquoise scarf near the lemon jar and peers out the window at a finch trembling a branch. What moves us most? Window light pours in, shifts this moment to the next, arriving where? Shadows tremble like voices, like smoke. I arrange and rearrange where objects sit, how they relate, like I'm trying to pray to get the prayer right. Maybe it's my counting. There aren't really 5 things here, but also the sky blue scarf, the white table beneath, the window, and clarity of light it admits, plus shadows, plus souls, plus vibrant puddles of paint that tremble with each dip of the brush by my frail hand each time I reach. Here's another one from this series. Peonies. These aren't my favorites. I grouse to the spirit who wakes me to circle the block at dawn on the hunt. She loves to transgress, leaping fences as I lurk and scan for neighbors, gulping coffee in doorways, eyeing me cautiously. Snap, just snap off a bloom from this bush, she commands. Then we'll jog around the corner and grab another. You love to paint them, she taunts, and not the blousy ones who droop. Pick a tight pink bud with all that potential to reveal, to shine light through its tissues. You want to pop them in a vessel or some transparent vase before it shatters, before heat and time coax out their tongues. Oh yes, these blooms will sing for a day or two. They'll blush and make promises, then scatter. Every year they'll scatter. So don't stand there looking shocked. Grab your brush. Exhibition. One last walkthrough before the guests arrive, and I realize my paintings are murmuring, exchanging motifs. Little arrows zip between them. Cumulus masses sail from canvas to gallery walls towards the door. Thick lines reach between intaglio prints, tying them in knots. Why didn't I notice? Laughter rises near the wine and cheese table, but my images fill with souls I hadn't yet reckoned with. This one's called Trust, and it's for our dear friend Fudwa. It's been a week of pushing through, no matter how hard to open eyes and ears to the news. My soul wavers, tries to balance, to be open and determined, humble and persistent. I gather brushes, tubes of color, sheaves of cotton paper, then sit with a friend. We paint still lifes, scarves with lemons, sunflowers in a vase. We savor everyday things, even when our wrists ache or we falter. We slip little gifts into each other's bags. Last week, she brought me a tube of French ochre, and I gave her a brush with a sharp, impeccable point. Also, a bracelet with blue stones for luck, because she's flying home to visit her sisters. And though she has the proper papers, you never know. You never know. So I've been involved for years with a nonprofit called Souls Shot Portrait Project, started by the artist Laura Madeline. This group matches visual artists with families who've lost loved ones to gun violence. We honor the memory of each lost loved one by creating a piece of artwork. Then they go on display for a year throughout the area, usually Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, and eventually we get them back, and often we give them to the families. So here's one I painted of Kaylin K.J. Johnson. The writings that surround this portrait are testimonies I copied from family members, especially his mother, Emily. My poem is After Image for K.J. Johnson, 2004 to 2021. Painting KJ's portrait, I peer at this beautiful boy, shot in his parked car, waiting to ferry friends to soccer practice. His mother sends me photos that capture his smile and his jaunty shoulders. I can tell he was quick with jokes, sparking others. His mother says he'd jump to carry heavy bags for older neighbors, even strangers. The boy who shot him was a stranger. After image is illusion. The brain persists in seeing what's removed. Sometimes color memory is repressed. Sometimes it's brighter. I cry when I take up the brush. What about his skin tone? Reference photos lack saturation, and I never met him. Or what about the background? Should I use red brick for urban houses? Or cobalt for sky? Something hopeful? So I'm a student of Musar, which is Jewish values, where you practice living a good and holy life through concern for others, balancing your own needs and desires with the perspective of another. So we each claim a watchword or phrase to remind us throughout the day. And mine is murmuration, which refers to the beautiful flight formations of different flocks of birds. So this first poem is called Sabbath of Birds. I'll be honest, it's nearly Sabbath. We're traipsing through fields in England on the lookout for starlings who might swoop through the marsh at dusk. We should be settling ourselves at the hotel, preparing candles, but it's been stormy all week, impassable roads. We'll fly home soon and have come here to see murmurations, to witness thousands of souls drawing images in air with the beating of wings. Now they're streaming above us like tendrils of smoke that quickly form into funnels, into whirligigs and vessels. Are they evading a hawk? The flocks will murmur for safety. Are they searching for grassland to roost in, their bodies pressed close for warmth? Or is the rising and falling, rising and flickering a form of prayer? Look, the sky burns rosy on a wick, a whisper as sun beds down. And now my last poem is called Murmuration. It's from a chapbook that was recently published. Have you ever witnessed starlings swirl above landscape, scattering souls over pale winter grasses in cramped suburban yards like mine? The shock might wobble your heart. I stare as 1,000 tiny birds slant toward sunlight, mimic roofs and branches, bloom into clouds and blessings. They spread like open fingers, spelling out questions, then contract into a line, a siphon into breath. I pray they'll soon reappear above another's landscape. And although I'm not a scribe, I stay up all night to paint what I can recall, traces. Thanks very much.
Wow, Kathy, that was incredible. Thank you. And very good PowerPoint skills while reading. That's also truly impressive. So were those all your personal artwork or were some of those other people's?
Yes, all mine. So I
All
think
yours.
abstractly and realistically and all, all
Amazing.
watercolor. Yeah.
And that's interesting too about for ekphrastic work, for those unfamiliar with ekphrasis, I think the majority of the time you'll find someone interacting with another artist's artwork.
Yep.
Really the person who comes to mind who did it sort of with their own is like William Blake. I
Yes.
don't know like too many other artists that
Well,
tend to.
there were. So I sometimes teach about it and really peering through. I mean, some painters had wonderful artist notebooks where they wrote poems. Jean Arp did and Kandinsky did. And so,
Oh,
but yes, I thought the same. And so I had to really research. And there are many now. I know that Robbie does both, but there are many now who dip into different art forms. So
yeah, it's interesting to see the direct interaction too. It's very cool.
yeah.
So yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I put a link in the chat to so this is like a local magazine, I guess, slash news source, Mainline Today, which we get here like on the main line in Philly, which is its own special, strange place in the world. And there was this issue, they do like an annual issue of Power Women, and Kathy was in here, which was wild considering the normal character that's in these issues of Power Women are like sort like a very sort of type of entrepreneur or like restaurateurs, generally like very corporate-y and people that seem to be, well, frankly, nepo babies for, current terms, like very independently wealthy folks. And so it was very cool to see Kathy just happen to be in here about, a year and a half or so ago. Yeah, anyway, very cool. So local hero, Kathy Cohn. All right, well, that's enough from me. Next up, we have Judy Kronenfeld. Judy is the author of 9 collections of poetry, which include If Only There Were Stations of the Air from Sheila-Na-Gig. I believe we have Sheila-Na-Gig's editor in the audience as we speak. Groaning and Singing from FutureCycle, Bird Flying Through the Banquet, also FutureCycle, and Shimmer from WordTech. Also, Oh Memory, You Unlocked Cabinet of Amazements from Bamboo Dart, Apartness, a Memoir and Essays, as well as poems, and that's from Inlandia, which is, did that just come out? I think that just came out in February. So yeah, Robbie Nestor, or I'm sorry, Judy, I'm really making life hard on you. Judy Kronenfeld is our reader now.
Hi. Lovely to be here. Thank you, Mark, for everything you do. It's much appreciated, really. I like to be humorous occasionally, so I'll start with a poem that moves in that direction. Only with dearest friends. We're telling anecdotes about short-lived pets at a table in the bagel shop when the wife, after a bite of her everything bagel with lox, reveals, as her husband stuffs his fingers in his ears, that she keeps 3 dead parakeets in cardboard boxes in her fridge's freezer compartment. And he mutters, "You open the door with a pack of chicken thighs in your hands and there's no place to put them." My husband, his face crumpling, stamps his foot on the floor, and all 4 of us guffaw until our wrinkles wrinkle and our stomachs ache. And I feel as unleashed as I did 7 decades past in 3rd grade when some kid farted really loud just after the teacher turned to the blackboard saying, "Pay attention now," and the class, farter included, erupted in howls and shrieks. "Are you waiting for the resurrection?" I gasp, barely getting the words out, and we wail till tears sting our eyes. But I understand, because we simply can't imagine after hopping out of our cages like Chirpy, Hooty, and Sweetie, after fluttering about, after whistling our happy tunes, after bonding again, being buried in dirt. The next poem was in One Art, and it's a slightly long poem. I hope it accomplishes what those long poems need to do. Mind to Fullness. With every fragment of my one precious, dwindling life, I am trying to focus on these strawberries I bought for breakfast as I wash them. Enormous berries that look as if they'd been given hormones like steers and heifers. And a little too crisp on my knife, I notice, as I quarter them into a bowl. Unlike the minuscule and profoundly sweet wild ones I would like to find in a hilltop patch in some idyllic future. Berries that would stain my hands as I stuffed them 3 after 2 in my mouth, whose juices would dribble down my chin. I drag my attention, kicking back to the present, marvel at the multitude of strawberry seeds on each piece, tiny, slightly quizzical eyebrows all over the red flesh, which lead me away to nature's contingency plans, her overcompensation for bad odds. The leathery pomegranate pouch packed with hundreds of arils, bejeweled in glistening, delicious ruby pulp. Frogs that produce 1,000-egg clouds, fish that release millions at one go. And oh, the 100 little turtle hatchlings I watched on a video last week. Cheered by onlookers, they clambered out of the nest, then flippered laboriously over mountains and valleys of sand to the sea, where maybe 1 in 1,000 on a good day, or 1 in 10,000 on a bad, won't be scooped up by a barracuda or plucked by a gull. I'm trying to tug my eyes back to the cheerful strawberries in their white bowl, trying to haul myself with gratitude back to the warmth of my kitchen, back to my right arm, almost healed from a fracture months ago, actually lifting the bowl, back to your brightening eyes as I set the berries on our breakfast table next to the buttered toast. But love, I can't not see the ruined world, how it empties of deliciousness, brightness, and warmth, how it fills with the sounds of annihilation by enormous bombs, dulls to the uniform gray of destroyed cities, how irrevocably it numbs the starving and stunned, sitting on the mutilated ground, hunched over their fires, trying to bake a little ashen bread with the last of the flour. I'm going to skip one here. An entirely different subject, I think. Blue corduroy baseball cap. The blue corduroy baseball cap I bought you years ago vanished after a brief trip. Strange how I had to make a place for its absence in my mind, and how our reunion with it had squeezed itself under the driver's seat of our car, made all right with the world. You lost it again some days later when we went to radiology for my routine but you never know test, and we had to backtrack to the clinic, though it would have been nicer to keep sipping our post-medical appointment reward lattes at our corner table in the cafe. The cap wasn't on the seat where you'd waited while I checked in, nor the one where you'd sat while I registered, nor the one where you'd finished your crossword while the ultrasound wand moved across my neck. Sorry, no one turned it in, they shook their heads at check-in and registration desks. But a sweet-faced woman at the exit noticed our downturned mouths and heard our laments. Reclaimed only to be lost again. Chirped, oh, I'll inquire in the back, and somehow returned with the hat. How luxuriously we wallowed in its stunning comeback, lucked up twice in 1 week, as if a little kindness and attention could balance all askew ledgers and return everything ever missed. Gods of mercy and grief, I will bend the knee, I will bow down. I want you to know how thankful, how grateful I am for this velvety blue hat, once again covering my husband's chilly bald head, from which recent memories are beginning to drift away, making me so afraid. This next poem was in One Art and also in Diane Lockwood's marvelous anthology for Terrapin, her press, What the House Knows. When you've lived in a house for 50 years, it breathes with you in your sleep. It lights your lucky way from morning bed to kitchen of blessings, the filled pantry, the humming fridge committed to keeping the berries you love for breakfast firm and delicious. It lets you move freely through its pleasant rooms as you water your peace lilies and philodendrons, and after a slightly scary checkup at the doctor's and some fill-in shopping welcomes you again for dinner and a little non-alarming TV watched with your spouse from the soft settee. It vouchsafes both of you a quiet passage to untroubled dreams, guarded as it is by ancestors assembled in multiple albums in its cabinets, pressed against each other in phalanxes. You want to pray to this house's lares and penates. You want to beg them to never let you leave it, never make you sort the dust-encrusted plastic bins entrusted with hundreds of letters you and your husband wrote to each other in an almost mythical past. You want to entreat the household gods to keep them forever reachable and uncorrupted on their sagging shelf in the garage of inexhaustible mysteries. This next poem kind of follows from that, but it's all imagery, so it's just a little bit of a different approach. I think this was in Jacar Press Journal 1. Reaction to diagnosis of sorrow to come. Our little house is floating out to sea, taking on water. The books we never culled, pulping out and falling off the tilting shelves. Our saved letters spilling from their box, ink blurring and lifting off. The lounge and sofa, the ottomans and end tables, all slide downwards as our home half crests the oncoming wave, the two of us bobbing close to the ceiling like an ancient doomed Chagall bride and groom. If only there were life preservers on ropes to be thrown. If only there could be a chopper dropping a ladder from the sky we could both safely climb. If only there were a harbor we could settle in with a view that never changed. I'm going to end with 3 poems from recent collections. Musical Surprise from Groaning and Singing. And there's a few words in here. Kazatsky, you know, that vigorous Slavic dance, which has that impossible step where the dancers are squatting and they kick out each leg alternately. Kvetch in Yiddish is to complain and kibbutz to joke around. Musical Surprise. All through the klezmer concert at the synagogue, all through the wailing, laughing, talk-back violin, the clarinet cavorting and kazatskying, and climbing up to cry from the rooftops, the cymbals shushing and tisking, the sax keening and weeping its ecstasy of prayer. My dead father and mother sit down beside me, and my unmet father's sister who never escaped Germany, and my mother's parents who died before I was born, and their parents before that, all of them silently kvetching, kibitzing, groaning, singing, all the way back. On the subject of memory, like so many of my poems. This next one, this 2 more. If only it comes from If Only There Were Stations of the Air, the Sheila-Na-Gig collection, which came out last year. And it was also in One Art, thanks to Mark. Sometimes there's no freedom to love the world. Its slants of light, its glancingness, requiring quick, open arms. The sorrows of the body hood your eyes. Time places its heavy stones steadily around you, building, building, until there is only a small spot left for your body to curl into itself, its own prisoner in its cold hovel. where it dreams of galloping through the dark like a hero in a ballad, drinking in the flash and glint of dawn. And this last poem is from my chapbook, Oh Memory You Unlocked, Cabinet of Amazements. And in this poem, Aleph Bet is the alphabet in Hebrew. The days of awe are the high holidays in the fall, starting with Rosh Hashanah and ending with Yom Kippur. And Avinu Malkeinu is a prayer both chanted and sung during those holidays and elsewhere in the year. It means our Father, our King. A distance. There was a hum once in my childhood, a muffled recitative, a trembling, foregrounded against my city's steady din, the sound of praying twice a day in the Orthodox synagogue we never attended, just next door. I imagine the Aleph Bet my grandpa tried to teach me when I was 4 before he died. Those Hebrew letters of fire rising into the air, becoming white vapor, curling under the raised window sash into my 5th floor bedroom and into my ears. I learned most of the tunes as if by osmosis, without trying. Now, a lifetime and a continent away, at home alone during the days of awe, I listen over and over as Barbra Streisand sings Avinu Malkeinu, climbing the cage of notes, settling back in sorrow and hope, ascending again, higher, even higher, until my spine shivers with the pleading the music speaks, and the tones about to self-transcend, to burst on soundless wings, hush, fold into themselves. I could learn to long for anything encoded in such sounds. Thanks.
Wonderful reading, Judy. Thank you so much. Very educational as well. Nice to hear some words in Yiddish. I have a friend who has learned quite a lot. Actually, fluently speaks Yiddish and like reads in Yiddish and does all these things related to it. And it's very interesting to me. Yeah, it feels a little like Latin these days. But you know, I know it's still spoken, so very cool. Thank you for all those poems, and I did put a link in the chat. I'm sure that Haley would love it if if people bought the book directly from Sheila-Na-Gig, but I did put a link in for Amazon where they have a ridiculous deal going on right now. No one knows why they do these things, but randomly sometimes they'll be like, sure, you can have the book basically for free.
I know, I noticed that, basically for free.
Yeah, wild, right? So thank you again. And next up, we have Robbie Nestor. Robbie is a retired college educator who has never stopped teaching in one way or another. She's the author of 5 collections of poetry, the most recent being About to Disappear, which is an ekphrastic collection that is going to be published by Shanti Arts. She's also edited 3 anthologies and curates and hosts 2 monthly poetry readings on Zoom, the Verse Virtual Monthly Reading, and Words with You, which is part of the Poetry Salon online. And I'll drop a link in the chat to find out more about Robbie and her work.
By the way, you can learn more about the readings that I do every month on my website, and I put a link to that earlier in the chat. So, and there's also information about my books as well, except for the new one, because I don't have any yet, unfortunately. I'll let everybody know when I do. Today I'm going to read some poems in honor of my parents' yahrzeit, the anniversary of their death. They died within 4 days of each other in 2010, June 1st for my father and the 4th for my mom. So they're poems about family and ancestry and my parents. So, and one of them is dedicated to Judy. So here
Oh, I
she
know the
is.
one.
Yeah, I'm going to read that one. So, ancestors. My ancestors became adept at leaving, traveling by ship, sinking low in dark green winter waves, subsisting on shreds of over-salted herring. They learned new languages, took on different names, yet carried with them the tales and histories that made them who they were. I imagine that they sang on the trip over, spinning wild fables in the ship's dark hold, but later they had to go again. Each sanctuary gave way to the next. Even knowing what they knew, they hoped there would someday come an end to leaving. The next poem is Tradition, and this is the one that is dedicated to Judy, inspired by her memoir, hybrid poetry and essay, Apartness, and it's called Tradition. My parents had already drifted from tradition, taught me next to nothing of the rules their parents and their parents lived by, the complicated dietary prohibitions, demanding cabinets to spare, 2 refrigerators, 2 sets of silverware. They left behind the laws enforcing separation, the holy from the secular, forbidden from the blessed, our people from all others. At synagogues, their mothers and grandmothers were herded behind the mechitza. They couldn't see or hear. Men kept them penned like goats, stifling in the summer, cold in winter, far from the hearth, fearing pious men would be drawn away from prayer by a seductive nape, golden down above an uncovered wrist. I was American, which meant the old prayers came to me only through an open window, chanted in a tongue I did not understand. Yet my father still believed that educating women was a waste, while my mother fed the flame of my obsessions with the kindling of her mother's whispered wishes. I too had something to pass down. I learned to light the candles, studied the old books, taught my son to recognize the one day of the week, 1 week of the year when we eat matzah instead of bread and sing of freedom and redemption. I know that he will teach this to his child, even without truly knowing what it means. This poem is called Feast, and I think it was in One Art. It's not holiday banquets I hunger for, the turkeys my mother labored over, the china that arrived with her from England, with its grand platters and scalloped plates. It's not the gravy or mashed potatoes piled high like clouds. I miss those ordinary Sunday mornings when I would wake at sunrise to read the funny papers, walk the dog down to the playground, startling the flocks of starlings settled in the dew-damp field, tracing their hieroglyphic prints in the soft ground. Every week, my mother slipped a wrinkled dollar bill or two into my hand, some change, and sent me to the deli for bagels and smoked fish. We sat down at the cluttered table, didn't speak, devoted to our task of dividing still warm bagels into perfect halves, splitting golden whitefish at the seam, picking off each fragrant shred with the smallest silver forks I've ever seen. Sometimes there was a strip of velvety smoked sable, unctuous and rich, fresh squeezed orange juice, so bright it hurt my eyes. I can't think of any other meal I'd rather have again, especially if it means we'll be together, all quarrel still, as we so seldom were at any other time. This one is called Vesuvius at Home, and it's out an epigraph by Emily Dickinson. I judge from my geography volcanoes nearer here. I remember the clatter my mother's pressure cooker made on winter afternoons, how it spat steam, played a tune. Sometimes she sang along. Once the gauge shot off, embedding like a bullet in the ceiling. She just stood there, gazing, as green goo geysered, slight smile on her lips. My mother loved her pot. I'd even say she was inspired by its potential and her own. She knew volcanoes can be still for years, though magma brews beneath. Maybe she sensed they were alike, she and this pot, that she could capture the force of the words that fueled her, the ones she muttered under her breath all day in 2 languages. She trained me to believe my words had heft, taught me to embrace the danger, learn the craft of channeling all the rich profusion that nascent power might allow. This poem is a golden shovel from the last line of Bridget Begin Kelly's poem, Song, Regret. On this night and many others, just as I close my eyes, the whole past opens out forever, like the midnight sky, heart dark and deep. It is the night my mother dies in her sleep, and I am not there to slip the ring of hammered gold, worn thin, off her finger. I touch this band etched with unreadable signs, feeling its heavy sweetness. My mother's purse. Cleaning out her bedroom closet, I discover you in a graveyard of old purses, stocked with cents, ticket stubs, and subway tokens, a pair of yellow leather gloves, pale fingers like the waving tentacles of an anemone, capacious as the womb that housed me, wallet bulging like the cheeks of a fat squirrel, dispensary of coins and folded bills, condiments and sweets, full of wonders as the galaxy, both hospital and supermarket, bowling ball. You weighed her shoulder down, source of memory, surrogate for the one who carried you. You'll join her gold teeth, comb, all that will mean nothing once I'm gone. This poem's called L'Adore Vador, which means from generation to generation, and it's the name of a prayer. But this poem goes in a different direction from the prayer. L'Adore Vador. My father never told me stories about growing up. I only know he left home at 16. I'm sure that he was sick of that cramped apartment where they must have slept three to a narrow bed, like rolled up socks crammed in the drawer. I gather these facts as one might harvest onions in a plowed up field, grabbing hold and pulling till they yield. Anyway, I know for sure he joined the Air Force, though he was just 16. Was that after Grandma threw her second husband out, the only father he had ever known? I heard my father speak a dozen times about his fear that he might lose his job, have to move us all back in with her to double up, his words, like someone sucker punched, suffering under her reproachful eye. Who did he remind her of? Perhaps her father. I didn't even know his name, just the stories, mostly tales my mother whispered when we were alone. She was a stranger to the family, not bound to keep their secrets. Some families hand down legacies of great estates, paintings, and china. My father's family left only taut silence, old resentments, and the twisted chain of DNA. Thank you so much for being here and for having me.
Wow, thank you, Robbie. You're truly a master at the quiet power in poetry, as I think you well know.
Thank you.
That was a little window into your personal life. I know you have a really interesting story, and that your parents' story in and of itself is very interesting. So thank you so much for being here, and for our lovely correspondence that we get to have. So last up today, and then I should say after our final reader, we can all say thank you, and I'll stop recording at that point. And then if you're able to stick around, we can do a bit of Q&A, and if you'd like as well, kind of community time to chat amongst each other. So last and certainly not least, we have Barbara Crooker with us. Barbara is the author of 12 chapbooks as well as 10 full-length poetry books. Honestly, I thought it might be even more. This includes Some Glad Morning from the Pitt Poetry Series, which University of Pittsburgh Poetry Press longlisted for the Julie Suk Award. Sorry, that's from Jacar Press. Also the Book of Kells, which won the Best Poetry Book of 2019 from Poetry by the Sea, which I love and have mentioned in the past how much I love, as well as Slow Wreckage from Grayson Books, and they do terrific work. Other accolades include a Grammy Spoken Word Finalist, which I did not even know about, the W.B. Yeats Society of New York Award, the Thomas Merton Poetry of the Sacred Award, and 3 Pennsylvania Council Fellowships in Literature. Robbie's work has appeared in a wide range of literary journals and anthologies, including the Bedford Introduction to Literature. And now, Barbara Crooker.
Thank you, Mark. And I do want to apologize to my fellow readers. I loved all of your work and all of your readings. I can't listen and do the chat at the same time. That's kind of like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. So just know that I appreciated and loved all of it. When I was looking at what I thought I might read, I looked at what I'd published in One Art, and I realized that an awful lot of the poems were from the manuscript I have that I'm circulating, which is called Absence. And it's about the death of my husband and then the ensuing grief. And I have an epigraph for the whole collection, which is, "The problem with death is absence." So I'm going to read some of the ones that were in One Art, but they're in the narrative order of the book manuscript rather than the order in which they appeared in One Art. The Couple. Under a cloud of COVID restrictions, ending up on the shores of hospice, the couple set out in their canoe. He was in the stern, steering as usual. She was in the bow, looking for hazards. The waves piled up. She began to bail, while never letting go of his hand. The journey lasted 4 nights, darkness splashing over the gunwales. He grew tired. She kept paddling. Eventually, they started to drift with the current, which took him out with the tide, then sent him down gently on the farthest shore. The O in Widow is empty, a room with no windows, the lifeless moon in a bleak sky, the hollow in your throat I used to kiss, a deep well without a wish, without. Where there used to be a couple, the deep division of negative numbers, the unused chair at the kitchen table, the vast Sahara of one side of the bed, the air in my hand as I reach out for yours, the shape of my mouth when grief sneaks up and takes me unaware, the heartless dawn with you still gone. Avoid the impossible question, and this has an epigraph from Dr. Joyce Brothers. It takes the form of, "How are you?" or "How are you doing?" Pretend you have hearing loss. Bend down and tie your double knotted shoes. Ignore the question. Instead, ask one. People love to talk about themselves. Don't even think about how you really are, which is lost, bereft, adrift, a shell tumbling in the tide, a crust of bread, not the whole loaf, an empty glass, the residue of wine. The real answer, still here, though I wish I was gone. The second year, this has an epigraph from Annie Lamott. You will lose someone you can't live without, and your heart will be badly broken. And the bad news is that you never completely get over the loss of your beloved. But this is also the good news. They live forever in your broken heart that doesn't seal back up, and you come through. It's like having a broken leg that never heals perfectly, that still hurts when the weather gets cold, but you learn to dance with the limp. The most beautiful weather in weeks, Sky of heartbreak blue, leaves slowly turning gold in the sun. But what I'm longing for is steady rain, hanging clouds, air you can swim in, the weather of grief. It's hard to hold on to sadness in an autumn this translucent, sunlight this bright, chrysanthemums humming with bees. It's been 2 years. I didn't think I would survive. But now I'm lifting my body, aging and clumsy though it is, in my 2 thin arms, and somehow I'm learning again how to dance. Christmas without you. I no longer make fruitcake, those garish cherries, sticky chunks of glacé pineapple, candied peel, snug in their bed of dark spiced cake. No one but you ever liked it. And I'm not capable of walking in the ice-crusted woods to chop down, really saw, a fragrant tree, wrestle it on top of the car, then lug it inside, water it daily on hands and knees. Instead, an artificial tree, pre-lit with tiny lights, does its best to brighten these dark nights. Where I sit in front of the fire alone with my solitary glass of wine. The stocking you sewed for me the first year we were together hangs empty, as does yours, felt cutouts sewn by your mother when you were 2. There are no presents to wrap or gifts to hide. The cookies are unbaked, roasts untrimmed. Just the silence of the snow, the flame from a single candle, the longest night of the year. May your memories bring you comfort. Those were the words I'd often use when writing condolence cards. But when I lost you, my beloved, I found I'd also lost my memories. Not all of them, but the order of things. When we met for dancing that night at the bar, was it before or after the spaghetti dinner? What was the name of the restaurant in Lyon that brought us a bowl of mousse au chocolat big enough to swim in and said, help yourself? In which park in Paris did we find the horse chestnut, now resting in the shadow box? We used to joke on our travels that together we made up a 5-year-old. Who am I now as I try to traverse this difficult world without you? Autumn, and the leaves give up, let chlorophyll leak away, go back to their true colors. Then wind strips them from twig and branch, though some saying hang on with brittle stems. The way I cannot let you go, keep your name on my checks, your message on the answering machine, your ring on my finger, your name, my name. And fortunately, as everyone was reading their wonderful poems, I realized I would have a little extra time and that these would be kind of sad poems to end with. So now I will read 3 happier poems inspired by my fellow readers. This one is from my book called Gold, Robbie's poems for her parents. This is a different type of culinary morning from what Robbie had. My mother's favorite food was, and they're made up here in the Lehigh Valley, peeps. In those last few months, my mother didn't want to eat. This woman who made everything from scratch and who said of her appetite, I eat like a bricklayer. Now she listlessly stirred the food around her plate, sometimes picking up a piece of chicken and then looking at it as if to say, "What is this?" Wouldn't put it in her mouth. But peeps, marshmallow peeps, spun sugar and air, molded in clever forms, a row of ghosts, a line of pumpkins, a bevy of bunnies, a flock of tiny chicks, sometimes in improbable colors like purple and blue. One day, she turned over her tray, closed her mouth, looked up at me like a defiant child and said, "I'm not eating this stuff. Where are my peeps?" When it was over, the hospice chaplain said some words in my backyard under the wisteria arch. The air was full of twinkling white butterflies in love with the wild oregano. Blue-green fronds of Russian sage waved in front of the stargazer lilies, and a single finch lit on a pink coneflower and stayed. When there were no more words or tears, I ripped open the last packet of peeps, tore their little marshmallow bodies, their sugary blood on my hands, and gave a piece to each of us. It melted, grainy fluff on the tongue, and it was good. And then this one is for a line that was in Judy's klezmer poem. I was a clarinet player in not a very good one in my youth, so I have a fondness for clarinets. Ode to chocolate. Well, I hate milk chocolate, don't want clouds of cream diluting the dark night sky, don't want pralines or raisins, rubble in this smooth plateau. I like my coffee black, my beer from Germany, wine from Burgundy, the darker, the better. I like my heroes, complicated and brooding, James Dean in oiled leather, leaning on a motorcycle. You know the color. Oh, chocolate, from the spice bazaars of Africa, hulled in mills, beaten, pressed in bars. The cold slab of a cave's interior when all the stars have gone to sleep. Chocolate strolls up to the microphone and plays jazz at midnight, the low, slow notes of a bass clarinet. Chocolate saunters down the runway, slouches in quaint boutiques. Its style is je ne sais quoi. Chocolate stays up late and gambles, likes roulette, always bets on the noir. That's from my book, More. And then I will end with one for Kathy, which is called, you'll get the connection, Murmuration. And this is from Some Glad Morning, the Pitt Poetry Series book. Murmuration. Cold morning, November, taking a walk when up ahead, suddenly the trees unleave and thousands of starlings lift off an immense river of noise. They braid and unbraid themselves over my head, the gray silk sky embroidered with black kisses, the whoosh of their wings, their chattering clatter, patterns broken, formed, reformed, a scarf of ragged ribbons. Dumbstruck, mouth open, I say holy, and I say moly, and then they're gone.
Yay, thank you, Barbara. Amazing. I hardly know what to say, even. I'm tempted to say something very cliche about life coming full circle in some kind of way. This is really for all our readers. This has been an incredible reading. I will note, though, that both Barbara and Robbie's poems I was reading since I got interested in poetry, really. So it's kind of surreal to actually be hosting a reading featuring you both. So life is amazing this way, and art is important, and art lives on, I suppose, generation to generation. So it's important in our fraught and difficult times. If others would like to chime in, I'm going to stop recording now, and we can hang out.